Hello and welcome to HCG Corporate Designs. This video is all about infographics. I will show you some interesting insights into my daily work and show you how I created this infographic. First of all, I of course have to know how the infographic shall be used in the end. There are infographics that are printed in magazines, like this one, so I have to care about the correct format, like A4 in this example. I have to work in smooth color mode and have to export the file in a resolution of 300 dpi. So these are ordinary printing parameters. On the other hand, you also have infographics for digital purposes or screens only. Then the format is not that important because you can easily change that. I have to work in RGB color mode and export the file with a resolution of 72 dpi or 200 dpi if I work for Retina displays. Besides these specifications, I of course also have to know who the infographic is for a broad audience or a specific niche. Because an infographic for an end customer has to look completely different than an infographic for business partners, for instance. Also, the corporate design of a client can play an important role. When you have an infographic for a BMW driver, that has to look completely different than an infographic for a Coca-Cola drinker, for instance. So the purpose of use and the target group really determine the infographics look. In the beginning, there is always a huge pile of data. I of course have to get an overview of that data and break it down into thematic groups. These data groups will be my stations in the infographic later on. So here it's really important to really understand the topic and the data so I can create a logical order of my data stations or data groups. Then I think about a look and a design for my infographic and make some rough sketches where I work on how to best visualize the data groups. And making these sketches takes some time, but it's quite helpful and reduces my time of designing the infographic in the end, because it's not very good and helpful to design just something into the blue, because that lacks a concept and a structure what is necessary to have for a good infographic. I always find it important to have a color concept. You don't necessarily have to do that in the very beginning. You can also create your infographic in black and white in the first place, but create a color scheme at the end and implement it into your black and white infographic then. So the colors always have to match the topic, of course, and the purpose of use and the target group. Usually I always pick between 5 and 8 colors that match the topic of the infographic, that go well together and complement each other in a nice way. When I work on an infographic for digital or screen purposes, I often use the Adobe Cooler, which is quite practical and really gives you nice color ideas. However, when I work on an infographic for print purposes, I go with that Pantone color fan that gives me precise color codes, so I always know how the colors look like when printed, because otherwise I won't see that when I only work with my screen. Besides from the colors, you can of course also use patterns in the background, but always be careful with patterns. Use them very subtly because you don't want to overdo it and destroy the look and feel of your infographic. Also, shapes require a scheme that runs through the infographic like a common thread. In my example, I use text bars and text boxes that are slanted. Also, you can see the red hard frequency line that goes quite well with the theme of the infographic. Here and there, I stumble upon infographics with photos in them. Now, placing an illustration into an infographic can look quite nice, but placing a photo into an illustration, into an infographic, that is quite scary, because the human eye always wants to look out for reality, and a photo is reality, so the infographic around the photo becomes less relevant, and you don't really want that because the infographic is the heart of the topic. So always be very careful when you mix or when you want to mix photos with infographics. I personally wouldn't do that. I always create an infographic in a vector program such as Adobe Illustrator. This guarantees unlimited scaling without pixelation and gives me the full bandwidth of design possibilities. However, there are graphic designers that try to do an infographic in Photoshop. Now, Every professional designer gets goose pimples when only hearing about that. Please only do an infographic in a vector program, always. If you have questions about infographics or need one yourself, simply send me an email to office@hcg-corporate-designs.com. It would be very nice if you like this video to share it or comment on it. So thanks very much for watching, and I wish you a very nice day.